Hello and welcome to another jungle video, and in this one I shall be showing you how to play from behind in Season 10 to recover when you have a bad start and give you 5 steps you need in order to find a way to impact the game despite the jungle experience nerfs and removal of catch-up XP. Now the focus on this video is, if I may paraphrase Yoda, to learn to let go of all the camps you fear to lose. So I will begin by outlining these 5 steps using specific examples to show you what to do when you find yourself in these bad situations, and then we will do a highlighted gameplay example showing you that despite being level 6 at 11 minutes that you can still end up carrying the game. And as always, if you've enjoyed the Season 10 content and do want more, please consider liking this video and of course subscribing. And finally, before we begin explaining how you can stop being a chicken nugget and turn into a full-fledged wing, today's sponsor wants to tell you how to get buff.
Greetings and hello. Buff is an easy-to-use loyalty program that rewards gamers for simply playing, and is free to use. Log in, select your game, League of Legends of course, complete challenges, and in turn receive tradable buff coins from doing what we all love to do, play games. Use these coins in the marketplace in exchange for a variety of gift cards and in-game items so you can go from red to green. Swish. All of this happens in the background and doesn't interfere with your quest for finally leaving Iron. Click the link in the description to be rewarded simply for playing. You think this can be my new base skin?
Thank you very much to our giant red friend, and the first and second of these steps are the most important. It's basically to give up what you can't contest, enable your jungle GPS and use it to avoid the enemy jungler. Imagine you get invaded at your blue side wolves randomly and shoved off of that side. It's Graves, you're level 4 Evelyn. Sure, you could use what limited vision you have to sneak away that Grump, but you know he's going to try and go for the blue because of that global timer, and so you can't afford to just walk up and face check. You will die. The protocol here is, where are my lanes and where are the enemy lanes? If all enemies are accounted for and you know you have a 1v1, but you're gonna lose it anyway, you don't actually want to go and contest. If you don't have a buddy like this Thresh, you will be required to give it up, and that's okay. It's okay to lose the battle because in the end, you will win the war. That's the goal here. If the enemy does send numbers to help the Grave, maybe a 3-man invade on your blue, you will really have no option, and the stubbornness of low and mid MMR junglers leads to them digging even bigger holes rather than beginning to climb out. You need to shed your tears, wipe them off, and move on to the next step, avoiding the enemy jungler and buying time. But yes, as a weird person who likes to play strange things like Zyra jungle, I have at many times had infestations from unwanted Kha'Zixes, but all that means is I need to use my jungle tracking and vision to avoid him for the time being, as I cannot fight him without laner help, which 99% of the time we won't get lane help, will we? And to throw step 3 in here, you need to have control of your own jungle. So this example includes everything we've so far mentioned. The way you maintain or regain control of your jungle is firstly by not going where the enemy jungler is. That's part of giving up your camps that we already mentioned. You want to be the one dictating your camp spawn timers and use your tracking of the enemy jungler, of which we have a dedicated video on the channel, to actually avoid wherever he is. We want to control our camp spawns by going on the opposite side of the map to where he was last known. Do not under any circumstances, especially when you do not have vision, go back to that part of the map. You're just setting yourself up for failure, for traps, for cheese. You can avoid further confrontation and unsync his farm with yours, because the worst thing is for 2 junglers to be doing similar clears such that they meet at ganks, they meet at scuttle crabs. You really don't want that. If you have vision, of course it's not a problem, right? You can adjust your strategies accordingly. However, you will end up on the same side of the map. In this case, you saw the Kha'Zix on the map taking that bottom side crab, killing the mid Katarina, and if you are using your F keys or clicking around the map, you'd see that the Kha'Zix was low and wouldn't be able to counter jungle you. So in theory, I could have gone to the bottom side and taken the Krugs and the Raptors. If he was high HP and we didn't have vision after the death, the last thing you want to do is head to that area because he would easily bait me in. In this situation, the Zyra heads to the top side to secure the other crab. This is considered a huge success because you can sequence there to your second tier Grump spawn, your second tier wolves, into your raptors, and into your Krugs, and all of a sudden you have full camp sequence control simply by understanding where the enemy jungler was, going to the other side of the map and securing an uncontested objective, and then making sure your camp sequencing was smooth all the way down such that he couldn't actually counter jungle you without knowing the timers. Also, don't forget to continue to keep good vision down on important entrances, as you can see on your screen now. These are excellent places to put down vision and control wards. It lets you see when they're invading, when they're counter jungling, and essentially just lets you avoid them, which is what you want. However, we will revisit exactly how this can be used in about step 5, but after sequencing these camps as the Zyra did, look for a gank on the mid lane once going back and buying and sort of getting a gold reset. The Katarina's Tillo, she's going back to base, will address ganking in our 4th step, and as she's about to set up the crab, the Kha'Zix shows on the top side ward, So in this situation, you've got some control wards down, back out, it's okay to give it up. However, you see the Kha'Zix, you know he's going for the blue buff invade, do not fight. Your mid isn't there, your top is pushed and hard, it'd be nigh impossible to come out on top. But given the Kha'Zix does not know where you are, because that was the good thing that you did, right? You sequenced your camps in the opposite way, you went back at a different time, you denied him the knowledge of where you would be located, you can use any ability that grants vision, or even a ward if you have it, to see what's going on over the blue side wall. Be very careful when you do this, because if they have vision and you haven't scanned it, you could actually be just walking into a trap. However, if you can go and steal it and take it away from them without actually fighting and then sequence your camps afterwards, that's exactly what you're looking to do. You're not quite at the level where you can 1v1. You don't want to get too confident. You just want to make sure you have control of your house, avoid fighting them, and not let them know where you're going to be next. However, that very much sets up step 4. Once your game is control, you've regained control of your buffs and your jungle, you can finally look to get some sort of lane impact. Often if all lanes are losing, like in this situation, and you're behind, then this will take the form of lane ganks in order to avoid being detected and to avoid any known enemy vision, especially if they're winning and they're deep warding. It can be really difficult to get a good flank. However, with this kind of playstyle, what is set up very easily, as soon as your lane pushes and you see him go for a gank, maybe it's even a successful gank and you didn't actually predict it, what you can do is easily go up there for the counter gank, whether it's a proactive one such that you're waiting for it to happen, or you see some low HP targets and you're able to secure those kills. This works very well with Evelynn, as you can see, because once you've been suppressed, counter jungled like the Graves did early in the video, but you've done steps 1 to 3, they don't really know where your gank's gonna come, they don't really know when you're gonna hit level 6, especially if you just counter jungled their blue. So providing you've done steps 1 to 3 properly, either regular pressure ganks or counter ganks will present themselves, and it's imperative you take advantage of that window as lane XP from pushing, epic monsters, kills. These are all the ways to get catch-up experience now because of our nerfs in the jungle and, well, just removal of it really. If you are a spam gank jungler like Camille, maybe you're not even like a Zyra, you just cannot afford to farm that quickly, maybe you're in a higher MMR game where you really need to have lane impact, then the controlling of your jungle by smart camp sequencing and translating that into ganks won't always work as well. But it's still important that you do get a crab as early as you can, even if it's a bad early start, and you make sure your camps are spawning on your terms, because if you're not, and you're in Masters Plus, you're probably not going to see 15 minutes. In this situation, it's important you try find a lane to camp and repeatedly gank it as a focus. The enemy won't be able to match that cadence if he's farming and counter jungling and trying to do usual jungle things, but the raw fact is you will get more experience from these kills and lane pushes and fall away objectives that you would by slow farming if that is in fact your forte. It also gives you prior on those RNG crabs if they spawn on the same side. If you're on bottom side doing this, it gives you Drake prior. If you're on top side doing it, maybe you get a Herald. Depends on which lane you chose to gank. Just be cautious of vision, use your scanner well, and purchase a plethora of control wards. Finally, a brief note on our 5th step, and that's sort of taking all of this in stride, and that's taking the invisible fight to them, the Cold War of jungling. When they gank, when they show up on wards, whenever they telegraph their next paths by leaving lanes in a certain way, make sure you cross the no man's land of that river into their side of the jungle and get something back from them. It's imperative that this is part of your comeback procedure because it's not what camps like in Season 9. You know, what camp did you take? Oh, I took Krugs, I took Raptors, fantastic. In Season 10, it's about how many camps do you have because of the disintegration of our experience. When you accomplish this as a 5th step, then you can equalize any camps lost. You put yourself back in control of the entire map and you can use that for objective and counter ganking fallback as we highlighted in our video last week. The timestamps should have given you an understanding of what we've covered so far, so now I'd like to give a highlighted breakdown of how our Kindred utilizes these steps and strategies in part to maintain a golden item lead despite being suffocated in experience. I will be pointing out when they do a good job about these and when they ignore them and actually make bad decisions, so it's a good, well-rounded example of poor and good decision making, and also shows you how you can stifle yourself in these kind of situations when you don't kind of keep yourself tapered in a little bit and play with your brain. So the most important thing I can highlight here when we're talking about this game is that these principles work when you're equal in a losing matchup, a little bit behind or a lot behind, and then you kind of have to weigh the risk and reward of exactly what you're doing. Unfortunately, this week, early in the week, we did a video just on that. So yes, there was an invade, things went weirdly, the Kindred managed to get an assist and a kill, the Lee Sin only managed to get an assist. The additional item for the Kindred is kind of nice, but they still really don't want to fight 1v1 versus Lee Sin. You must also understand that an invade can very much be 1 step forward, 2 steps back, it can be 1 step forward, 1 step back, it can end up meaning nothing, and against tough matchups, Kindred really needs to be doing this in every game, and river control is so important because of those marks. So obviously once finishing the red buff, you think, hey, I'm gonna go and gank gank mid lane, still level 2 and the Leona shows up, the bottom lane has Supreme Prio, you're already kind of being a little bit suffocated. And as such, you know the Lee Sin is going to go for the topside crab. He's probably going to go and look to take away those raptors and krugs. Thankfully, there's a very good control ward on the blue buff already, you know, getting that vision down early for any sort of invades and counter jungling. And the Kindred weighs the risk with the reward of invading and stealing those raptors in kind, and then is going to look to move on down and use a counter jungling position to get a gank off on the bottom lane. All 5 steps used within 1 minute. Giving up camps on the top side, cannot contest them, getting invaded so has vision control down, tracking the enemy junglers so that you're on the other side of the map from them, you don't have to go and fight them, using the knowledge of where the enemy jungler is because of your tracking to go and weigh a little bit of risk reward in counter jungling them, and then using that position, you want to go bottom lane like this Kindred, you want to pick up 2 kills, you shake that tiny tail when you succeed, and they've already nullified that kind of rough beginning. I mean, you can imagine being level 2 trying to AFK farm as Kindred when you lose the top side camps. That would be kind of unfortunate. Now remember what I said at the beginning of the video. Doesn't matter how, when, or why you end up behind or why you end up getting stifled. In this case, it's 100% the Kindred's fault. After that fantastic gank in the bottom lane, waited around so that the Mark would spawn on the bottom side crab, secured it, but then wasted way too much time looking to gank on the bottom side, instead of now taking control of their own jungle, the only thing they haven't yet used. And because they don't do that, the Lee Sin counter ganks, yes, Kindred gets another kill, which is kind of nice, but because of this, gets invaded and killed at their gromp. This should have been known. This was kind of common sense, right? The bottom lane's dead. You were seen going into your jungle. The Lee Sin, who is kind of ahead in experience now, is going to walk into your jungle, and there's not much you can do about it. And again, upon respawning, use your brain. Lee Sin was last seen bottom side. You know the gromp is now down. You have to assume he might have taken your wolves. There's no point heading to that side of the map. Head to the top side. Take your gromps, take your raptors. If the scuttle crab spawns there and you've seen the Lee Sin on the bottom side, go and take that. Don't fall in too high a risk of a play. The Kindred does that. You can go and gank. Sure, you can go and gank. But the thing is, when you go gank, you're not taking control of your jungle. You're revealing your location to a jungler who's ahead and can easily counter jungle and take you out of the game. And if you die like the Kindred does here, it puts you in even worse of a situation. However, the Kindred makes a good play, knowing that the bottom side camps will be up, the Lee Sin hasn't crossed any sort of deep vision yet. Let's go take control of our blue, the gromp, the wolves, get control of that side of the jungle, can easily transition to the top side. But if there is a fight ongoing, rotate down to the bottom lane. Do not be afraid to rotate to fights where you have backup, where you can fight as a team, because your deficiencies won't be as prominent. Yes, the Lee Sin shows up, but because of the Kindred's presence on the mid lane there, the Yasuo has lane priority. He can rotate down, he can help out with the fight, and they end up coming out on top. So yes, the Kindred had a lot of good practices involved, but also had a few bad ones. What should most of you be doing in the situation? You're a bit behind, you want catch-up experience. What gives you that? The dragon. No, instead they go steal the red buff, doesn't give you anything. They flirt with taking the raptors, again doesn't give you anything. And then the Twisted Fate ults in and you die. However, despite these negatives, the Kindred has for the most part done a lot of things that have let them stay in the game, at least for items and gold and pressure. Even if the self-experience stifle is kind of sad, they give up the dragon, the Kai'Sa face checks, they see the Lee Sin on the bottom side. That does again give the Kindred the counter jungling advantage. Topside crab, get a Rift Herald, actually start taking control of the game, by using the Herald, supporting that mid lane, winning fights, roaming with your mid laner who you did help get ahead and relieve pressure on just by those drive-by ganks, and you're back in the game. And you can see some highlights of how the Kindred did towards the end of the game, but needless to say, they do scale better than Lee Sin. So hopefully that game gives you a lot of do's and don'ts, positives and negatives of all these different steps. If you are further behind, if you didn't get the benefit of a nice invade, all of these things still apply. Use your jungle tracking, use your steps in your mind, print them out and keep them up. And don't forget that all comebacks begin with a calm mind. Do not tilt and do not give freebies away because you're being greedy. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you were able to enjoy and learn something. Please do like, share, and comment if you did. We always like to get around 1,000 likes. Please consider subscribing for more Season 10 content coming soon as we run up and ramp up to placements. And as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.